want to introduce myself again. My name is Jessica, and I'm going to be a sophomore this year, majoring in graphic design. Now, I'm here to inform you about what people don't usually know about Disneyland. Now, firstly, I will speak about the history of how it became to be. Secondly, I will look into the darker side of Disneyland. Thirdly, I will list off a few weird facts, and lastly, some surprising facts. So, I want to start off by speaking about how Disneyland became to be. Now, Walt Disney in the late 1930s and 40s, along with his two daughters, Diane and Sharon, visited many various amusement parks. And it is said that when he saw his two daughters ride a carousel, it gave him the inspiration to construct a place where adults and kids can have fun. But troublesome arose with finances, despite him selling both his houses and risking his life insurance along with the help of his brother. But luckily, ABC came through and gave him a $6 million loan in order to own a part of Disneyland and do a weekly series. Now, from then on, the construction began on July 24th, 1954, and it ended on July 17th, 1955. So it only took 1 year to construct the whole place with 18 attractions. Now, on the day of the opening, it is considered as the Black Sunday because of a lot of chaos that arose. Now, a number of 28,000 people showed up when there was only 15,000 to be expected. This means that a lot of the food vendors ran out of food. It was really hot during that day, so a lot of people had to buy drinks, and Walt Disney had to decide whether to have working toilets or drinking fountains. He opted for working toilets, which caused outrage towards the people because during that time Pepsi was selling drinks, and that created a scandal. But Walt Disney exclaimed that people can't pee on the streets, but they can drink Pepsi. Now, from that next day, it went fairly well, limiting the guests to enter and fixing the small problems. Now, when we think about Disneyland, it is considered a magical place where people gather with their families for a joyful experience, taking photographs with the cartoon characters that both the adults and kids grew up with. It is basically known as the happiest place on earth. So let's move on forward and let's go into the darker side that isn't really usually spoken about. Now, when I talked about earlier that Disneyland is known as the happiest place on earth, that may not be so true, as where there's good, there's bad, and where there's bad, there's good. So what I'm leaning towards is the numerous amounts of deaths and injuries connected with Disneyland. So I'm going to list off a few, but before that, I want to share my condolences to the families who lost their loved ones. Now, in 2000, a 4-year-old suffered cardiac arrest and suffered permanent damage, from the Roger Rabbit rolling over him and folding him in half. Since then, he's never spoken about, and unfortunately lost his life at the age of 13. Now, in 2004, worker Javier Cruz, dressed as Pluto, was trampled over during a parade in Florida. Fortunately, lost his life. Now, on 2010, a worker who was cleaning the Paris It's a Small World was dragged under, and unfortunately, the boat started and killed him. So now I want to get away from that. And I want to list off a few weird, creepy facts that you guys may have not even have known. Now, the props for the Pirates of the Caribbean is all made of real human skeletons. And now, when I think about that, that's a bit creepy, I might say. Now, the Haunted Mansion, believe it or not, has become a favorable place for people to scatter their loved ones' ashes all over the place. Now, this got out of hand, so Disney decided to vacuum the place every single day for it to be dust-free. But behind the Haunted Mansion, there's actually a pet cemetery, and there's actually a tombstone for Mr. Toad. Now, in the plants in Tomorrowland are all edible. Now, the reason for this is because Walt Disney wanted to build a land of the future for human resources. So he wanted to farm all edible vegetables and fruits throughout the attraction, which I think is pretty neat. Now, did you know that over 200 feral cats live in the park? And because of this, it's to keep the rodents away. Now, now I'm going to switch over to some surprising facts. Now, in 2000, there were no mustaches allowed. This is because Disneyland wanted all employees to be shaved clean, wore new clothes to construct a perfect image, and once you enter Disneyland, you are no longer a worker, but you are a performer. So you have to build this image of Disneyland of full of smiles and just become a performer. Now I wanna go back to the late 1990s. You know, the Splash Mountain ride was known as the Flash Mountain ride, and I think you can figure out why. There was numerous incidents where women would flash when the picture was taken, and because of this, Walt Disney created employees where they would monitor and take off the photographs that were inappropriate. Now this died down quickly and things were able to go back to normal. Now, some fascinating thing is that there's actually a time capsule that was buried at the Sleeping Beauty Castle in the 1955 and won't be uncovered until the 80th anniversary, which is July 17th, 2035. Now, Disneyland over the years foregone many changes and expansions, to rides closing and opening, to the addition of Star Wars, Harry Potter. I mean, it has become the main spot for tourists all over the globe to visit. Now, by the 21st century, it has over 15 million visitors annually. I mean, Disneyland has become one of the largest amusement parks to have ever existed, and the total for the number of visits since its opening has been 746 million. Now, lastly, I want to give you guys the original dedication that Walt Disney said during the opening on July 17th, 1955. So I'm gonna read that since I haven't really memorized it. To all who come to this place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relieves fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with hope that will be a source of joy and inspiration to all of the world. Now, I want to